Welcome to the War of Ideas podcast. This is Cody Symbol. Gonna continue on from the last podcast's style, and mostly because I felt like giving feedback and criticism to a podcast I listened to over the past week, and that podcast is Sam Harris's. He had Scott Adams on, who is the creator of the Dilbert comic strip, and I wouldn't call him a Trump supporter. I'd rather call him a Trump defender. He tries to show Sam the point of view of how Trump and Trump supporters see things. I felt like I had a lot to say to rebuke Adams' points, so I created this episode. I'll be doing it in the same format as the Jordan Peterson one. I will play a clip from the podcast that he was on, then offer my feedback afterwards. Alright, let's get to it.
So back to the whether it's bad that we're all talking about politics. I've actually been streaming and talking and blogging about this very point, that we have collectively as a society learned more about each other, the nature of truth, reality, persuasion in particular. You'll see lots of people talking now about cognitive dissonance, confirmation bias, persuasion. These are important concepts for people's happiness and understanding of their condition that we never had before. And in fact, before the election, I had said several times and publicly that what Trump was going to do was not just change politics, which he did. I mean, he changed everything, but that he would rip a hole in the fabric of reality and let us peek through. And that hole is what we're peeking through right now, which is that people can sit in the same theater watching a different movie, and that there's a reason for it. We know what the reason is. It's confirmation bias. It's cognitive dissonance.
Sure, I can agree with you that people talking more about politics is helpful. It keeps the general public smarter on the issues that have to do with politicians. But in no way can you compliment Trump on that. You can give him credit for it, but it's credit he should not want. Although for him, he'd probably love to take credit for it anyway. See, we should not be patting Trump on the back because he's making so many people so scared of what he's going to do to the country that they're actually deciding to participate in politics more than they ever have before, or for the first time ever. That's not speaking good of him, it's speaking good of the people that are getting involved. It's everyone besides Trump that is trying to turn his presidency into a good situation. It's a symptom of Trump. Trump is not doing it on purpose because he thinks it's good for us. We, the people, are doing it because there is such a huge divide between him and the left now. Because the left thinks he is truly dangerous, way more than Bush ever was, way more than anyone in their lifetime. If Trump never existed, we wouldn't have to be so involved in politics, scared that he might press the nuke button over getting called an orange. When Adams mentions that Trump is ripping a hole through the fabric of reality and letting us peek through, he's getting something wrong there. Yes, Trump is ripping a hole in the fabric of reality. Well, in this analogy, but he is not the one letting us peek through. We're peeking through ourselves, under our own accord. Trump is doing the ripping, and we're doing the peeking. We're trying to fix it, and trying to learn from the things that he's doing. Sure, a lot of us are smarter now than we were before he won the election, or maybe than we would have been if Hillary won the election, but that's only because our own defense mechanism has come up to try and defend ourselves from his reign. Giving Trump credit for the increase of people's focus on politics would be like giving ISIS credit and saying that they're a good influence for the increase of people's concerns about terrorism by radical Islamists. Yeah, a lot more people know about radical Islam now, thanks to ISIS. Are we gonna congratulate them for that? Should we thank them for that? I mean, without them, we would never realize the problem in the first place. The problem still might exist in the world in very small quantities, but the fact that they made the problem global, a global issue, we should be thanking them, right? Because now we're all more aware of it.
So if there are two possibilities here. One is the one you described, which is he knew the details and he was okay with it, which would be problematic for me. And I'm positive it would be problematic for 100% of Trump supporters if that was the case.
Here he's talking about Trump University, and that if Trump knew what was going on, it'd be indefensible, and his supporters would stop supporting him. And I highly doubt that. He even said in a public speech that he could shoot somebody and he wouldn't lose any votes. And a lot of people seem to agree that he was right about that. People like Scott Adams will rationalize every single thing Trump does and try to spin it in a way that makes him seem intelligent. I mean, he signed his name off on Trump University. He should know what's going on there, what's going to happen there before he puts his name on it.
But he also says clearly and often that he likes being unpredictable and he likes setting his adversaries off balance. You know, are you my friend? Are you my enemy? Are you gonna slap a tariff on me? Do we have a treaty? And persuasion wise, that is brutally effective because it makes everybody search for uh, the one thing they can depend on. And if he offers it, they're going to grab it. So keeping people off balance until you offer them your solution is actually pretty standard persuasion.
I don't think there is something that people can depend on with him, that they can grab with him. And he doesn't seem to be unpredictable when talking about Putin. He doesn't seem to be trying to set Putin off balance. He only seems to be trying to do these things to our allies, like France and Germany. He riles them up. He knows that they're nice people, so he can get away with pushing a prime minister out of the way, fixing up his tie, and getting on his tippy toes to try and be taller than him in public. He is a professional bully. He is bullying our allies because he knows he can get away with it. He wants them to pay for more things while we pay less because he's a bully. And he knows that they're not going to retaliate because they're not bullies. And he doesn't do negotiating with Putin. He would never push Putin aside and step in front of him and take all the spotlight because Putin's a bigger bully. And this is why he admires Putin. Putin is what Trump would be if Trump was intelligent. He aspires to be like Putin. He wants to be as feared as Putin. He doesn't want all these people on the internet railing on him, telling him he's an orange buffoon. He wants to be such a big bully that the public is actually scared of making fun of him. He's not there yet, but I bet he sure wishes he could be. So yeah, if you want to call bullying persuasion, then go right ahead. But it's not right. A majority of Americans do not want a bully as their president. He takes advantage of the people he knows won't fight back, and he sucks up to the people that are stronger and bigger than he is. And he sucks up to the people that he's scared of, that will fight back. Might be a solid plan as a businessman, but he's not a businessman anymore. He's the president, and relations with other countries matter. I'm sure a lot of his supporters, when they hear me say he's a big bully and he's going to take advantage of every country that he possibly can that won't fight back, and he's going to be nice to people like Putin that he's scared of, they're going to say that's the greatest idea ever. Take what you can get and don't mess with people that are bigger than you. And I get the idea here, but guess what? We're all human beings. Americans are not the only humans on the planet. It'd be nice if you were nice to the other human beings on the planet that live outside of our imaginary borders. Like, yeah, I get it, America first, but it doesn't mean you screw over other nations to get us ahead. The other nations are filled with people. It's your job to focus on the American people, which you're not really doing right now. I mean, all that promise of infrastructure, that's not really happening right now, is it? But you can't bully other nations. You have to look out for your own kind, and your own kind isn't just Americans, it's humans. The least you could do for the people outside of our imaginary borders is not bully them, not take advantage of them, not steal their lunch money and say that you're doing everyone in America a favor. Not that that lunch money would go towards the people in America that need it anyway. So even if one would agree that stealing their lunch money was okay, you still aren't going to do the right thing with that lunch money.
He has a lot of competing things he has to balance. One is that you can't let Russia get away with this. And the second is you can't piss them off when you need them as much as we need them right now. So those are two competing things. My assumption, and you can test this against your own assumption, is that we're not letting them off the hook and that we're going to fuck them as hard as we can through the CIA and through the CIA. And we're probably going to mess with their cyber. We have probably
the CIA that you just publicly said you don't trust to analyze the situation. Rather, you trust Putin, and then you send out a tweet which says we're going to form a joint cyber command with Putin to figure out how to deal with cyber. I mean, it's insane. It's not principled. It's not strategic. It's just a madman on Twitter.
In what way do we need the Russians right now? Why can't we piss them off? And I don't want other nations looking at us like a mini Russia. We haven't been on good terms with Russia for a long time, and we seem to be doing okay. I don't think we need them. And nothing Trump says or does gives me any notion that he wants to get Putin back, or plans to. He's too scared. Putin's a bigger bully than he is, and he helped him out to begin with. He's not gonna punish him. I think that's literally the last thing he would do, is try to punish Putin for helping him win the election.
One of the systems that apparently is coming out of his administration from the EPA is the idea of this red team, blue team discussion on climate science, which would have the benefit of educating the public. And here's the brilliant part. If it turns out that the consensus of scientists are spot on and everything they're saying, we should have listened to them harder, this red team, blue team thing is gonna surface that. And it's going to allow the administration, including President Trump, to side with science once it has been completely communicated and vetted in a way that the public and the administration can understand. Because the alternative to that is for him to pretend he understands what science is saying. And I think that is the big dope trap that any of us think well, in your case, maybe you can understand the science, but the average person, doesn't have any hope of looking into this field and penetrating it.
But they don't have to. The point is it's not our job to vet all of the specific sciences that the scientists working in that field are doing nothing but vet themselves. And so when it's like people do things with climate science that they would never do with oncology or with anything else. I mean, it's like you're not an oncologist, right? And when 97% of oncologists say that smoking causes lung cancer, you wouldn't be tempted to go on the internet and after an afternoon of Google searches, come to your own opinion about whether smoking causes lung cancer. That's not a move that people tend to make.
All right, Sam does a good job of getting rid of that ridiculous claim. And I just have a few more things to add besides that. That whole thing Scott Adams just said with the red and the blue team was probably the dumbest thing he said on the entire podcast. It feels like he's playing devil's advocate just to see how ridiculous he sounds. Like, oh, we can't take consensus of all the scientists of the world, but if the red versus blue team comes out and says the science is right, we can take that consensus as 100% positive and that climate change is real. Why would people accept that if they don't accept 97 or 99% of all climate scientists on Earth? Because it was approved by Trump. The people that talked about it were approved by Trump. I mean, it's just ridiculous to even think about that. And yeah, Sam is right. It's not our jobs to vet the scientists. They do more vetting than random people of the public who don't know as much about science could ever do. Just listen to this part again.
And here's the brilliant part. If it turns out that the consensus of scientists are spot on and everything they're saying, we should have listened to them harder, this red team, blue team thing is gonna surface that, and it's going to allow the administration, including President Trump, to side with science once it has been completely communicated and vetted in a way that the public and the administration can understand.
Right there. He says it's brilliant. If it turns out 97% of scientists are right, everyone will surely believe the consensus of this one random government body that was put together by one of the dumbest people on the planet. Yeah, everyone will believe them because they'll put it into layman's terms, which scientists haven't already done in hundreds of different ways to try and explain things that people otherwise wouldn't understand. Sure, people will totally believe those guys if they haven't already believed the other thousands of papers and scientists that have poured their life's work into trying to help people understand these things.
When I built my house, I had to decide whether to put solar panels on the roof. Now, they said if you put these panels on, they'll pay for themselves in 7 years or whatever it is, 15, whatever. And I said, well, that's a terrible deal. Do you know why it's a terrible deal that I would spend some money and it would definitely pay back in 15 years? The answer is because if I waited 3 years to install these things, the cost of installing them would drop so much that I could pay for them in far less time. So economics is not always, hey, there's a bad thing coming, so we have to do, some obvious thing right away. Lots of times it's more nuanced than that. Sometimes the best thing to do is to wait for your technology to improve, your visibility on the situation.
He is absolutely right. As an individual, keyword individual, looking to save money, of course that's a good choice to make. Waiting 3 years, you save more money. But as someone who is trying to stop carbon dioxide from continuing to pile on in the atmosphere, your answer should always be as soon as possible. It won't matter that you saved a couple million, billion, or trillion dollars. if you wait to sweep the coal miners' jobs under the rug and go full solar in 5 years instead of doing it tomorrow. The damage is being done right now, as we speak, and delaying it isn't going to help anybody but making yourself look good for saving the country money now and getting rid of the jobs in 5 years when it's easier to. People are still going to be losing their jobs. It's just going to happen in 5 years instead of today. Eventually, the coal miners are going to go out of business. And even then, that's not even the point. The damage is being done right now as we speak, and the sooner we stop, the more likely we are to save our planet. You saving money on solar panels on your house is not equal to deciding to keep the coal miners' jobs around for a little bit longer so that you can save more money. Yeah, we know you might save more money. That's not what we're arguing about here.
The economist's way of viewing this stuff is that when the economy in general is doing well, which almost entirely means jobs, jobs equals the economy for the most part.
Yeah, side note, I'm not so sure about that. And he likes to talk about the stock market being up because of Trump. I'm pretty sure when companies' stocks go up, it means the company is making more profits, and the people who are invested in that company get to make more money. Not everyone is invested in the stock market, not even close to everyone. And company profits is not the same as middle class Americans' profits. And it doesn't matter if everyone has a job if they're making $2 an hour, does it?
That you have the freedom, the flexibility to solve whole kinds of problems. It's if your economy is doing well, you can do healthcare. That saves people. If your economy is doing well, your military is strong. That saves people. So, so to say that having coal might, or even reducing research, which seems like a bad idea to me too, that those things have this straight line negative impact in the future is just ignoring everything that economists know, which is that building a strong economy, and jobs is a big part, gives you all kinds of options. It's a better system.
I wouldn't say building a strong economy gives you more options. I say it gives people more money. Once again, by people, I mean corporations. But even if middle class America did make more money as well as the corporations, all it means is that you have more money. Can economists also tell if your planet's species count is going to be cut in half due to global warming? Can they save us from that? Do they care about that? We have to learn to think about the big picture here and the longevity of Earth instead of how much money you can make before you die. You see, even if solar energy was a less efficient way and more expensive way of creating energy for us to use, we would still need to use it and try to convert over to it. Because in the long-term strategy, we need to stop the global temperature increase as quickly as we can. It's not about saving money. That doesn't matter at all, whether it's more expensive or not. It's just stupid. It's like buying an anvil for $5 because it's so much cheaper than the flotation device that costs $50, and you're out in the middle of the sea, stranded, and there happens to be someone selling you one of those two objects. And you go, you know what? I think I'll take the better deal. 'Cause I save money. Oh, and by the way, in real life, the flotation device is actually cheaper than the anvil. So you really have no excuse now. It was one thing when solar was still up and coming and a lot more expensive. But now, what's wrong? I mean, do you save the taxi drivers' jobs when Uber came to take them? No. You can tell the taxi drivers to either lower their prices or get better cars to compete with Uber. This is a free market, right? You're not gonna force Uber out of a place like New York City so that the taxi drivers can make more money. No, you're gonna tell the taxi drivers who are losing their jobs that they should go drive for Uber or get another job entirely because their line of work is ending. What about people whose job it is to drive cars and trucks? What are you going to do when self-driving cars and trucks become normal? Are we going to keep the people who used to drive those in the same business to do something that can be done by a computer? I mean, it's like telling people to dig a hole in the ground and then fill it back up over and over again. There is literally no reason for them to be driving anymore. Oh, that's right, you're going to tell them to get new jobs. They're not going to be doing something that we don't need from them anymore. It's the government's responsibility to help the growth, help create new jobs, help think of new jobs. And other people, the private sector, maybe they'll come out with new jobs. So, in the same vein as those autonomous cars and trucks, we have to just tell the coal miners, who there's not that many of left, especially compared to all the people driving trucks for a living, we have to tell the coal miners, sorry, this is going to be obsolete very soon. Everyone's switching to this. There's a lot of new jobs coming into this being solar. You don't have to do this. You can find another job. You just can't do coal anymore because A, not only is it going to be used as much and you're going to get less and less hours until we completely wipe it out for good, and B, it's not good for the planet either. So even if it was better than solar, you can't do it. Sorry, I know it's not your fault as the person that's employed by the company, but I'd like your kids and your grandkids and their grandkids to be able to live a life as good and hopefully better than mine. And the way to do that is to stop burning fossil fuels.
Do you remember before the inauguration when Pence and Trump went off to try to claw back those jobs from Ford and Carrier? And then, it sounded like they did, but then the news came out, well, maybe that wasn't really what we thought it was. But what
Right.
happened was they did what I call the new CEO move, new CEO move. And that is before anybody even, catches a breath, on your first day, you make some big changes that essentially brand you for who you are. That was their way to brand them as we're going to do anything to keep jobs in this country. That is the sort of psychology that drives an economy. Because if you think things are going to be good tomorrow, you invest today. And it turns out that's all it takes for a good economy.
So he's praising Mike Pence and Trump for lying about keeping jobs in America as their number one priority. Because if you put up the facade that you're trying to protect and hold on to the jobs, then investors will be deceived and invest in the stock market, and that's all it takes for the stock market to stay up. I mean, that last part could be true, but you shouldn't be praising them for that. Oh, and what's that? Ever since that bubble burst in 2007, 2008, the market has done nothing but go up in the past 8 or 9 years. I don't recall Obama ever doing that carrier publicity stunt with any other company. I don't recall him lying about keeping American jobs here, and the market did just fine under him. And it hasn't missed a beat since Trump's gotten in office. It's just continuing to steadily rise. I don't think Obama had much to do with the stock market rising, and I don't think Trump has much to do with it either. Do you know why that crash in the housing market happened? Now, I'm an expert on this. I watched The Big Short, so I know everything about this. And by that I mean, I know the bubble burst. People were sitting on a bed of lies. And then eventually, word got out. So you're praising this type of behavior. You're praising the behavior that would create another bubble where people think that the United States is doing better than it actually is because Trump has nothing but good news to say about himself and the country. But when it all comes crashing down, or if it all comes crashing down because none of the things he says are true, then we're looking at something similar to that housing crisis. So if you think things are going to be good tomorrow and invest today, even though the guy behind the scenes, or in this case, in all of the scenes, the president, is lying about the future, aren't you basically in a Ponzi scheme? I mean, if there's no actual growth besides the money you're putting into the stock market, and the companies aren't actually selling more products or coming up with new innovations, then are you not in a Ponzi scheme? And now, your moment of Zen.
There is never a moment where I find him persuasive. When I look at him, I see a man. I mean, it's really uncanny. It's like I see a man without any inner life. I see the most superficial person on earth. It's a guy who's been totally hollowed out by greed and self-regard and just delusion. I mean, the way he
Now,
talks about himself is so. It's like, I mean, if I caught some sort of brain virus and I started talking about myself the way Trump talks about himself, I would throw myself out a fucking window.